Okay, good morning. We're live and in person here in beautiful downtown Fort Edward for our personnel meeting this morning. So this morning we have Danielle here in person with us, and we're going to start the meeting. Do we have to approve some minutes from the previous
May
meeting?
11th?
We do. May 11th. I'll entertain a motion to approve them. Jim made the motion. Sue seconds it. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, let's go right to our staffing pattern requests.
Okay.
Danielle, let's start with the sewer. So we're
okay.
starting?
We can.
Okay.
So the sewer district has a few backfills. It's kind of a trickle effect with the pumping station and sewer maintenance worker is leaving, so we will need to backfill that first.
Entertain a motion to backfill the pumping station sewer maintenance worker. Moved by Dave, seconded by Jay. Discussion, as I recall, this was all passed through Public Works, correct? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Opposed? Carried. Which leads us to?
The sewer maintenance worker, we would be backfilling that since the person he hopes is to move up to that pumping station position.
Okay. Motion by Jay, seconded by Dave. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. The next rung on the ladder.
Is the laborer, it would be a backfill.
So moved.
Sorry.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Sue. Discussion? All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Carried.
Okay, so the next backfill is for the executive director of the sewer district. So this comes with a 3 to 6 months of shadowing for his position. It would be a temporary staffing pattern change if it is approved. I believe the executive director did want someone there between 3 and 6 months to do shadowing before he were to leave.
Okay. Melissa, can you bring it up to date? I recall some of the details from Public Works, but the position is civil service, it's testing, what's the whole status of this?
Right, it is a civil service competitive position. I did reach out to the commissioners just to get a little bit of guidance on how much of a shadow they really wanted, whether it's going to be the 3 months or the 6 months. I have not heard back yet, so I'll reach out again just to discuss that as well as the interview process with them.
And did we get an idea from Joe, a firm date of some sort?
June 2022.
June 2022, so this would put somebody in there by the end of the year.
End of the year or April, it depends on the 3 or the 6 months.
Okay, and between you and Melissa, what kind of process is this gonna take? Is this gonna take us quite a few months to find somebody, we think, or, should we start it now, or we should be thinking about starting this in September, or what's our thought process?
I would think it's a little bit early now. I don't know if Danielle agrees or not. I think at first, when Joe had brought this to our attention, he was thinking more of the end of the year. He was going to be leaving, but now he's let us know that it's actually going to be next June. So although we know it's going to be a position that's kind of difficult to fill, I don't know that we need to begin the recruiting process now. The civil service exam has been ordered already. So I think that's about all we can do other than making sure that job description is up to date and has the requirements that we're looking for the next individual. And again, I'll reach out to the commissioners just to kind of see what they're thinking as far as the interviews and their timeline as well.
So Danielle, if we started this process and found somebody, it would be a provisional appointment.
It would
right?
be. It would be.
And it would be an addition to the staffing pattern that would sunset, correct?
So we would either want to do a interim type title or a deputy type title.
Okay.
It depends, but it couldn't take Joe's title right then, until he leaves, and then that person would go into that position.
Does the committee have any input on what they think about we should start the time frame?
Well, first of all, it's gonna depend on what they want for, shadowing time. If it's 3 months, I mean, I don't see how we could start until November, December. If they want 6 months, then that makes it into the year, so probably September in that time frame. But you said provisional, but if a person takes a test is on the list, that's not provisional, is it?
Well, if they're reachable and appointed,
Yep.
then they wouldn't be provisional at that time, but, yeah. It would depend on the test, when the test is given too, and the timing, because the results take a couple months to come in, so. And we haven't seen it listed as being, an exam date yet, so.
Oh, so it's gonna be
It could be
quite a while.
after September anyway, until the exam's given.
Dan?
Yeah, wasn't there a letter sent, and didn't they say when they wanted it in their letter? I mean, if they sent a letter to, I haven't seen it, but you said it's Public Works, I think Jay said there was a letter sent. They didn't say when they wanted to do it and that, there was no details?
I think when the letter was sent, we assumed, based on Joe's explanation, he was retiring at the end of the year. That has now changed since the letter was sent. We found out now that's June instead of December. So the timeframe's changed a little bit. So I guess the two questions that I take committee input on would be, how long a shadow should it be? And then the second one would be, the process to move forward on this from this committee standpoint and with the sewer commissioners. We certainly want them involved, but I think we should be the lead agency since it all works through your office, right? Dana?
Matt, historically, we haven't been a lead agency, am I correct?
I got on just as Joe was coming on, so I don't have any
Well, I have
institutional history.
resolutions, I think, from 1986, and I think when Joe was hired, it appeared that the sewer district, the board of commissioners, the ones who did the hiring.
No,
So I think we need to invest.
I'm pretty sure that we did the lead
Let me
agency.
finish, and then, so I think what we should probably do is look further into that to determine whether or not we should follow the way we've done it historically. Pretty sure we have done it that way. And I think that's the preference, that was my understanding. But I haven't seen the letter either, I was told there was a letter as well.
I think the board, though, approves the appointment
Yeah,
overall, so.
That's a recommendation of the board of commissioners.
Right.
Okay, who's the oldest over there in the corner?
Roger should remember.
I don't remember it.
Okay.
Roger was here and Roger sat in on the board interviews of Joe.
So it was the board who,
Board
or
at
the
least,
committee?
the board at least interviewed him
Okay.
because you're the appointing authority. How you get there is up to you, but the board's the appointing authority.
The name of who they wanted, and we interviewed him and said he passed muster, but it was Board of Commissioners that gave us the name. We never did anything other than they gave us the name and we approved it. We interviewed him and said, yes, he meets the standards of what we would expect. Maybe at that time, the personnel department reviewed the paperwork and okayed it. But that's just how I remember it, and I'm getting old, so.
I'm more on Dan's. I thought the sewer district was the lead.
Okay, so they presented us with a name, with a candidate?
I believe so.
Okay, and then we had to make sure that they took the test, passed the test.
Well, they weren't, they were working with civil service.
They were, the board, the commissioners were.
Right.
Okay. If that's the
Which
case,
would have probably been whoever was in Joe's position prior then, right? Would be probably in the hiring process of Joe at that time. I don't know, I'm just asking, is that?
He retired, I think, prior. I don't know how involved. I don't believe there was a shadow or anything like that.
No.
okay.
There's no
Dana?
shadow.
Matt, so I got a resolution from November 4th, 2009, Executive Director appointment. The Sewer District Board of Commissioners has selected a new Executive Director, Joseph Browning. The Board of Supervisors ratifies this appointment. And it's similar to 1986 as well, with Joe Fishbeck? I can't remember his first name.
Jim Fishbeck.
I don't have nothing, wasn't it, Joe?
I think Lois was the head of.
I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
I think, you can decide to go one of two ways. You can give the authority to the commissioners to do the interviews and then give a recommendation to the personnel committee. And I guess based on that recommendation, hopefully, you will agree with the commissioners and appoint that individual. Otherwise, I'm assuming if you didn't, it would mean a whole nother round of interviews, because ultimately the candidate has to be chosen by the supervisors because it's a board appointment. So we can either, I guess, have the commissioners do the initial interviewing, make that recommendation, or have it a group effort where we have the commissioners and the personnel committee and whatever supervisors wanted to partake in the interviews, do it that way and come up with a consensus. So I guess it all depends on how much, how much you are going to support the commissioners and their choice of the candidate.
So considering your former position, then the sewer commissioners would work really hand in hand with Danielle down the process to make sure that the advertising is done the way it's supposed to be done, the interview process they take care of, and the civil service situations are all taken care of. So they would work directly with her. At that point, if they come to a resolution, we can be comfortable that Danielle signs off on it and then all the boxes are checked.
You could certainly do it that way and then just have if they, come with one chosen candidate, or maybe they're between two candidates, bring just that one or two people to the personnel committee for final approval and do that. That might make it a little simpler. I would just hate to see the candidates interview with the commissioners and then have to re-interview all over again with the personnel committee, and maybe you're not on the same page as far as the ideal candidate.
Could we get the county out of the sewer business by then instead?
How about some other input from supervisors?
This is the answer.
Lester?
I would think it'd be appropriate to have the commissioners interview whoever they want and give the three candidates to the personnel committee to re-interview, and then they would have a recommendation of the three, but have the personnel committee interview three. It should be more than one candidate.
Well, that's sort of a third option then. Jim?
I feel if they have one candidate, they feel that candidate's qualified and they need us to go through the muster and approve it. If they've got one qualified candidate, I don't see what's the problem. I'm not an expert on that entity, so I'm looking for them to suggest, put their best candidate forward. And from this position, I'm going to ask a few questions that would be relevant to me better understanding them as a candidate. But I don't think they need to put multiple candidates up. I think they have one qualified candidate they feel is comfortable and they're ready to move forward. That makes the process smoother.
So Danielle, we have a job description. We have minimum quals.
We do.
And in there, would you assume that there's there would be expectations that the candidate would have to fulfill for the commissioners, and there's probably some that we need to fulfill for us?
For civil service, yes, to be approved.
Not only civil service, but we would anticipate that person coming to our DPW meeting every month and making the reports. That's sort of...
Same as what the current person is doing.
Okay. All right. Melissa?
I have the letter from the commissioners that was sent. I have a copy of that, or maybe I have the original. And they were requesting to do the interviews, and then they maybe even suggested having one or two of the supervisors be a part of that interview process if you like. Otherwise, I'm sure they would take that as their responsibility.
Sue?
I remember Mr. Driscoll actually kind of saying that, Melissa, what you just said at our last meeting.
Okay.
And thought, he was just talking about bringing it to 17 supervisors and then interviewing, and what a lengthy process that would be. And sometimes the common sense rules out. And what do I know about sewer? Quite frankly, I'm learning more and more every day, but these are the ones that are responsible for a district that we oversee. And you and Danielle would still continue to be involved until the last appointment, I would guess it would be by the board. Is that how that would work? Or it would come to personnel and then you would begin from A to Z, you and Danielle. Is that correct?
Right, the commissioners would have to work closely with the personnel officer to make sure that all the qualifications are met. And Danielle could definitely lead the recruitment of filling the position. And then I think that probably would be the best way to do it, is have the commissioner's recommendation come to you for approval and then for board appointment. That probably would be a smoother process from what I've seen.
I would like to make that motion to do that. If you can put it into a motion, Matt?
Okay, can I ask one question before we put it to a motion? Then we would also have them make the decision whether the shadow is 6 months or 4 months or 3 months or 5 weeks. That's gonna be their call also? Bob?
We're kind of in the store business by default because of, some financial machinations that went on way back in the past. Frankly, I think the less intellectual effort that the Board of Supervisors spends on the sewer district, the better. It's just kind of an ancillary thing. We spend, certain of us, not present, I guess, spend an awful lot of time getting into the weeds and on the sewer district. I think it's rather irrelevant. I always have, we're kind of there because we had to be for some legal reasons. I think we take the guy that they sent up and we make sure we can work with him because we do have to ratify him. That is something we ought to take seriously as long as we're in the business. But I don't think we ought to be involved in a whole lot of interviewing stuff. And
So you would suggest that allow them to decide how long the shadow's
yeah,
gonna be?
and however they want to schedule, they're paying for it.
Okay,
What we care, send us a guy and we'll make sure we can work with him. If he's an absolute bonehead, we can. We'll reject him because that's our duty. But I'd rather not even have a duty.
okay. Dan?
I agree with Bob, and the only thing I can add to that, back in 2000, when I first started my first season up here, we hardly did anything in public work on the sewer district. It was a simple little report, and it was necessary to meet the legal requirements that Roger has explained many times, how we got roped into it. But it was nothing like it is today.
Okay. Would any members of the committee or any members of the board wish to be a liaison and sit in on their interviews, the commissioners' interviews?
Didn't sound like you wanted to learn.
Yeah.
I was looking at Sue to see if she wanted to.
I was looking at the chairman.
Look, the plus is right on.
I think that speaks volumes, Bob, for what you just
Yeah.
suggested. Does anybody know, I guess I'm in by default, is that the way it works?
Probably.
All right, so I'll ask them to allow me to sit in on the interviews. If they do, then at least we'll have a little feedback. Okay. So, Sue,
Yes.
you'd like to make a motion. How are we gonna word this, Debbie? To allow the sewer commissioners to start the recruitment process for replacement of the current director?
Well, the sewer district to go
Yes.
forward
With,
recruiting for a director
Okay,
process.
is that okay, Sue?
yes. With the job shadowing, is that component in there?
At their determination, the length of the job shadowing.
Right. Right.
All right, so Sue makes the motion. Jim, seconds it. Further discussion?
So that would be allowing the backfill, and that would be allowing
Allowing the backfill.
the temporary shadowing.
We would rely upon you to come up with the proper title
Okay,
and then have to go through this committee to have a staffing pattern change
okay.
based upon the title that you come up with. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
Sorry, can you just rephrase the motion? Just so I understood?
I wasn't sure I could get that down.
Essentially, they select.
They select, they're gonna interview, I'm gonna ask, we're gonna request that I can sit in on the interviews just as a liaison. They would make a determination on the with Danielle that they're qualified, how long the shadow would be, and who the person would be, which would then be sent to, should we send that, if they have a recommendation at some point, it'd be sent to DPW, then to personnel, then to the full board, or what's the proper process? Roger?
Proper process is whatever you choose to do in terms of getting the thing in front of the board. All the personnel officer stuff will have to be done no matter who the lead agency is. You're gonna have, if you want to designate or delegate rather to the Board of Commissioners, by all means do that and tell them to come back with a recommendation to get a new guy in the saddle and leave it at that. I mean, delegate that. Don't kind of delegate and, delegate with conditions. It's like, okay, you want a new guy, you figure out who it's going to be, when he's going to get here and how you're going to job shadow, clear it with Danielle, come back to us and tell us what you want to do.
Come back to DPW, come back to personnel, or come back right to the full board?
Come back to personnel because they're the ones that are going to have to go through whatever backfills, whatever titles they come up with Danielle, whether it's a deputy or a, whatever they call it. But if you're going to delegate it. Have them come up with a plan. Work with Danielle, come back to us with a plan. Don't do a plan. Have them do the plan.
Jay's nodding his head. He likes that idea.
Delegate. There's certainly enough professionals here that can help them if they need help.
DPW's already sent it to personnel. It's in your hands. It doesn't need to come back to DPW again.
Right.
Okay.
The Hows and Whys are going to be the personnel committee. The mechanics of it, the title you use and all that stuff is going to be Danielle, and she's going to have to come back so you can put it on the grade schedule and everything. So do it yourself or delegate, I guess, is the choice. If you're going to delegate it all. Danielle will make sure they do it right.
Okay.
So basically, the sewer district, you're designating the sewer district to be the lead agency on the hiring of the executive director, basically.
There you go.
Was that the motion that Sue made? Verbatim?
So you're set then?
Yeah.
And Danny, you're good? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So Melissa, if you've already reached out to them and you've been in touch with them, can you let them know where we stand and ask them if they would, I assume they're gonna do Zoom interviews, if they would include you and I, and then if you can make it or I can make it, at least we'll have somebody from the board as a liaison incident. Is that okay?
Yes, I will do that.
You're good with that, Danielle?
I'm good,
Okay. Good. That's the hardest thing we'll do all day.
hopefully.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we have some backfills for social services. First is a social services examiner, a competitive position at $19.05 an hour for a 40-hour week.
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Sue. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
We have their training and resource development coordinator. It is a competitive position. The base rate is $25.50 an hour. It is a 40-hour week position, and it's due to a retirement.
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Sue. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
We did have a late addition of a backfill for a caseworker. It is a competitive position, $23.29 an hour for 40 hours a week due to a resignation.
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Don. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.
So now we're at the sheriff's position. He does have a backfill for a secretary to the sheriff. He did mention upgrading that position, but now he is going to keep it at a grade 13. So he's just wishing to actually just backfill that position.
And this did come through public safety?
It did
It
come
did,
through
okay.
public safety.
So moved.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Don. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay?
That was all for the departments. I do have retirements for the county. We've had a couple retirements recently. One in February was Michael Stevens from the Sheriff's Department. And we also have Tom Quinlan from the Treasurer's Office that retired in May. And they all have been here over 10 years.
Okay, so we'll recognize them at the
We'll recognize them at the board meeting.
board meeting. Okay, that's just informational then, right?
That's just
No
information.
action item, okay?
Nope, that was it.
What else do we have?
That was all that I had.
Okay, was there anything else to come before personnel today? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn. Jim? Sue seconds it, all in favor? And I just want to say, I thank Danielle for coming into the chambers today to be part of the department heads coming back to the committee meetings. I appreciate her doing that, especially when I hit her up at the last minute. Yo, I'm sorry, Dan.
Yeah, man, I know you're from Granville, and when you opened this meeting, you said, welcome to downtown Fort Edward.
Right.
But you're actually in uptown Fort Edward, downtown Fort Edward would be Fort Miller, and maybe down in the business district, but the minute you get up the hill, you're in uptown Fort Edward.
Oh, it's all about the hill and the railroad track?
I drove, you said uptown.
Above the railroad tracks and below the railroad tracks?
Yeah, that's a bad connotation, though, using railroad tracks, but
No, okay.
up there.
But you're on the highest point in Fort Edward.
I suppose if there's an, an upper and a lower, it's like there's Low Hampton, so I guess there could be upper, lower, everything if there's Low
Is
Hampton.
this where Sandy Hill is?
Yeah, you're still in the village. Here. Aren't you in the village? Oh, no, you crossed the line back to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
That's right, too.
I appreciate the geography lesson, Dan. I learn something new every day.
I can't wait to be at Heck's Orchard on Thursday night in downtown Granville.
That's way uptown. That is way, way uptown.
That's in the boonies.
That's almost in Whitehall.
I didn't mean to embarrass you on that, man, but
No,
I had to take advantage.
I deserved it, didn't I?
That's what you did.
I think
Well, I thought that-
your whole committee was here.
Okay.
It's just
Actually, yeah,
it's a parade. You see, my grandparents lived on Center Street, and if they went to on Broadway.
If I took your spot, you'll at least left something in your coffee cup.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
And both.
All right, let's get right into the June IT committee meeting. First motion of business to accept the minutes from the May 11th meeting. Motion by Sue, second by Dana. Did you raise your hand, Dana? Any comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Roger Wick, cybersecurity. Y'all received a report from Deb yesterday.
Hopefully. So looking at the report, our numbers are staying fairly standard. We've gotten, I personally have gotten a bunch of suspicious emails lately. They've gone to a few other people that Karen's researching, but I don't think it's anything more than what we've been expecting. The kind of neat thing on this month's report is the monthly item of interest that Karen included, where now you can check yourself and see if some of your passwords have actually been compromised. I think Google's taking advantage of this because I've gotten a couple notices from them that they think one or more of my passwords might have been compromised and that I should change them. So password security, as much as we don't like it, is the key thing to keeping folks out of your stuff. I know they make us change ours here, and I grumble every time I do it, but the reason they do that is so that they're constantly rotating. And the other thing you have to make sure you do, and a lot of programs are requiring this now, is mixed characters, capitals, letters and numbers, so that it's a secure password and not something that's easily guessable. Going back again, while we're talking about passwords, all those nice things on Facebook, tell us what your second grade teacher's name was and what was the street you grew up on and everything, are kind of neat until you realize they're asking you basically every security question that they've ever asked you for the forget your password function. So you need to be careful of those as well. So passwords is the name of the game this month. You saw Colonial Pipeline was shut down. The southeastern United States didn't have gas for a while. That was a ransomware attack. Shows how easy that is to do. The FBI is crowing this morning. They got back about half of it, about 2.5 of the 4 million that they paid. But We'd rather not be paying anything at all to do that. So we're staying on track of things. I think we're finding out that our cybersecurity investments are probably one of the best things we've done. And as long as we can keep up our vigilance, we'll be fine. That's cybersecurity this month.
Hey, Roger, on the one side of the graph there, the potential, I mean, it looks higher, but it's probably like 40, 47 potential incidents compared to
you see
22.
those spikes, and I asked Karen about those. And if you have a security camera at home, you can, sometimes, I have one that's inside a window and a bug goes across the window and I get an alert. So sometimes you get a lot of alerts, but that doesn't really mean that it's a particular problem. You get a lot of alerts. So if you look at the alerts and see, why am I getting those? It's the ticketed incidents and the actual incidents. So we may get a lot of window rattling, because of the wind or something like that, figuratively speaking, and it's not an actual attack. It's just something that tweaked the system to go. And that's why we have people on the other end to take a look at what those are and see if they're actually problems.
Okay. Any other questions for Roger? Go ahead, Al.
It's not necessarily cybersecurity, but I got to tell you, every vendor in the world has started sending me emails on how I should spend our stimulus money.
Just click here, right, Al?
Well, there are a lot of consultants that see a lot of money out there, I'm sure.
We can help you.
And you can see our received emails when you look at our email transactions. Our received emails are probably 3 times our sent emails.
All right. Any other questions for Roger? Thanks, Roger.
You're welcome.
Hey, how are we doing today?
Hi, how are you all?
Good.
I just wanted to add on real quick to something that Roger said, talking about passwords, and add on to that MFA, or multi-factor authentication. We certainly use that with the county. We do get pushback because it does take a little more time to do it, but even in your personal lives, most banks at this point require it as well. But even if they can guess your password, if you have MFA set up for another factor for authentication, then they can get past your password, but they may not be able to get past that. Most likely they won't, hopefully.
That was the other acronym I was looking for, so thank you very much, Terry. Yeah, you see that with everything now, whether it's some form of social media app or utilization on what's apps that are on television that are on a smart TV too. You have a 2-pathway authenticity. So thank you.
I believe I read that was how Colonial was compromised, was by a VPN connection that was not protected with MFA, and they guessed the password and got in. So very important. I don't have much today, really. It's a project update. I don't have anything new on there. We're just closing some stuff out. A lot of the alerts actually on Karen's report are probably from some of the cleanup that we've been doing inside the network. So I don't know if anybody has any particular questions on the projects. We've been held up a little bit, especially on the patrol car router upgrade by the vendor. We just finally this past week got all the rest of it, and we can get going on that.
Yeah. Looks like everything else is on track. Mm-hmm. Anybody have any questions in regards to the current project that we have out there with IT? All right, thanks, Terry. Anything else?
No, I don't have. If anybody has any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you.
Any other business to come before the IT committee? All right, being none, I close the IT committee meeting for June.